Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We'll be discussing HR and facilities working together to support workplace lactation. Hi, my name is Cassie Giannikos. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Healthy Horizons. Healthy Horizons operates in 125 cities in North America and is the first company to provide workplace lactation support across the country. We support companies with new baby gifts, lactation room setup and maintenance, and education for new parents. I'd also like to introduce our guest speaker, Elaine.
Hi, everybody. My name is Elaine Yang. I'm based here in the Bay Area, California, and I've spent a little over 10 years now in various HR and people team roles. Most recently, spent a number of years at Lever, which was a small at the time but mid-sized startup here in the Bay Area as a part of their people and HR teams. It's where I met Cassie, Healthy Horizons, and also Timaj, our third presenter. And currently, I'm a part of Atlassian's global leadership team for our TA business partners. And so I primarily work with our recruiting teams to really solve sort of the business challenges that are ahead for us as we grow. And I think what's been really important to me and why this webinar is exciting to me is, the most meaningful part of my work is really growing companies, helping them scale, but also maintaining a very human-centric experience. And certainly lactating parents are a huge part of that. So happy to be here. Thanks, Cassie.
Thank you so much, Elaine. And our other guest speaker is Timaj.
Hi, hello everyone. Yes, my name is Timaj Bakadli. Thank you so much for having me today, Cassie and Elaine. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really excited to talk about how facilities and HR can really work together to make an amazing experience for all working moms, and talking today really about the lactation program. It's very near and dear to me. I am in the past worked in facilities for a very long time, specifically working with companies such as Figma and Lever, helping to support their lactation programs. And now currently I'm helping to support other technology companies on the real estate and workplace side. So really excited for our conversation today.
And with that, we'll dive right into the conversation. As HR and facilities leaders, how did you first start working together on your lactation program?
Well, I guess I can go ahead and kick it off. I think earlier I had mentioned that me and Elaine actually had worked together. I don't know, how many years ago was that, Elaine? Like 5+ years ago?
Yeah, 5+ years ago.
Now that just feels light years away. And so I think personally for me, it actually kickstarted because I was expecting, and I was working for a company that was fairly young in the tech side. And so they actually didn't have a formal maternity leave program. And so when I let HR know, hey, I'm expecting, that really kind of, one was like, oh gosh, Elaine was probably thinking, and and it was really, really the impetus to kickstarting a lactation program. And so fortunately for me, I worked also on the facility side of things. And so we really worked in partnership to really get that started. And I'll let Elaine talk about what that looked like from her end.
Yeah. Thanks, Timaj. I was the only HR person, I think, at our company at the time. And like Timaj said, we didn't have a lot of parents who were going on, birthing parents in particular. And I'm pretty sure, Timaj, you were the first one. And so when I look back at that time, and the learning there was, we were such a small startup. No one was really going out on leave who needed the extended time off and also needed to return to work with their lactation room or program in place. Timaj really kicked that off. But looking back, I wish that we had been more proactive about it. I think we had non-birthing parents go out on leave, but we treated it like a long vacation. Or like a long leave, and didn't really do very much programmatically from the company to support that. And I think it's a foundational piece of our culture that we were late to, right? It was very reactive. And so I think my key learning there is really, if you start hiring parents, approach it holistically and inclusively from the start, right? Just because we only had non-birthing parents, we didn't set up anything for our birthing parents. And it was like Timaj had to be the one to raise her hand and to bring that up. And I do think that one of the responsibilities of an HR or people leader and team is to create that space. It shouldn't be on the parents to really drive that. We got really lucky though, since Timaj, you led our facilities team there. But yeah, that's how we started.
I was just going to add to that. Don't be also afraid to talk to other companies, other organizations. You don't need to have to reinvent the wheel. I think that there's a lot of resources and tools out there, especially like a program like Healthy Horizons, who can help to kind of support that, because there is no right way of doing things. I think it's a matter of understanding what the needs of what your company needs, and then kind of helping to support that and really talking with the expectant moms in terms of what their concerns are. I think that was at that moment, that was my third child. And so I already kind of had an idea of what I needed from a company prior to working for other large companies. And so it was really a partnership with HR to kind of understand how we can also support that future mom, whether it was me in that example or others after me.
Yeah, and something you mentioned in a previous conversation that was so interesting was about kind of doing it earlier, like you both had mentioned, because parents have so much on their plate when they're returning to work that to have to design a lactation program on top of it and figure out the needs is quite a lot to ask. So as helpful as we can be.
Exactly. I think the proactive design and even just getting something, a skeleton or an infrastructure in place for the conversations and the timelines really helps. We were lucky since Timaj, you had two children already before that. But I remember during the course of our policy design, we asked another, it was a first time expectant mom, what she wanted. And she was like, I don't know. I've never had a child before. And so, start early and really lean on the resources that we have around us, like Timaj said.
And then do you have any examples of how facilities, HR, and Healthy Horizons can work together to start the program?
Yeah, I think there's the policy side and then also the facilities side. So Timaj, maybe you can go first with the really workplace facilities.
Yeah, I think from a facilities perspective, one, identifying a location, right, where, new moms will need for lactation purposes. Hopefully it's not a closet. You want it to be, which I will say candidly, ours was actually a closet, but we were limited in space, right? And so you had to work with what you have. But, I think being a new mom, you want it to be a comfortable space for them to feel like that they can pump. And I think for me personally, just having a space that was private and no one had access to was in itself a luxury. So I think that's first and foremost, just having the right facilities in place to be able to support that new mom. Secondly, I would say one thing in partnership with HR is just when they're returning back from maternity leave, whatever you could do to provide like a transitionary period for them. I think as a new mom, you already have a lot of stress because you have a newborn at home who's probably keeping you up very late at night. And so having to think about, work plus, your child at home, it is a lot to come together. And so I think for me personally, I think having a transitionary period, working with HR, working with your manager in terms of what that actually looks like, so that you could slowly get up to speed, I think is going to also ease a lot of just like angst on the mom side because they already have a lot going on.
Yeah. I don't know if I can say it any better than what Timaj has already shared, but I don't have any children. And so I think partnering with you all those years ago, it was definitely a learning experience for me. I didn't have my own experiences, right, to inform or guide some of the build out that we had. But I would say we didn't shy away from doing the work, doing the research, even if like I was deer in headlights there. I think part of human-centered design is really asking the questions, interviewing parents. Maybe I think we interviewed someone at the time who had teenagers, so they were well past the newborn phase, but really collecting as many perspectives as possible. Ask about the hard stories, right? Of what was really difficult or really frustrating for parents or lactating moms or parents in other places, and ask for a lot of help. I think there's a lot of open sourced HR groups that are online, your benefits providers, teams like Healthy Horizons who have so much, I think, such a large variety of customers and clients that you've seen. You've seen all the different kinds of lactation rooms that have been set up. And so I think really digging in and casting a wide net was key, at least for me, when we got started doing this.
Yeah. And I remember you had really good questions when you were setting up your program.
I didn't know anything, so I had to ask all of the questions.
But that's good though, because you were so good about educating yourself and learning and, really looking at it from the parent's perspective. So they have a great experience. Another thing Healthy Horizons can help with is kind of helping cut out some of the research, especially if people are strapped for time, like telling you exactly which chair or which fridge is best for the room, and also helping maintain it. Because I've seen some really gorgeous lactation rooms set up, but they need to be maintained so every cohort of parents has that same wonderful experience as the first.
Exactly.
I would also add to not overlook the logistics of maintaining, overlook the logistics of the room itself. I think there were numerous times in my past where I would want to go pump, and unfortunately there was someone who was actually in there because there was a lack of conference rooms. And so I think there was a matter of one, working really closely with HR and facilities, but also IT, and ensuring that that specific conference room is blocked off so that no one can actually use it. And it's really dedicated for that mom who needs to use it. And so I think just creating a sense of like safety of like, okay, I have the ability and capability to use it when I need to, because you're in the middle of meetings, you have a lot going on. And so just having that availability to use it when you need is, I think, so important and critical for the mom so that they feel supported from the organization.
Mm-hmm. And then from a legal perspective, it's also smart to make sure, moms have first access, because if they don't have access, there can actually be a violation and a potential fine each time that parent can access the space. So what I see is companies, if it is a shared space, making it only bookable by the parents, and then everyone else kind of comes second if it happens to be open. But like you said, Tamaj, having a dedicated space is really the best way to go. So switching gears a little bit, what are some of the policies that need to be in place?
Yeah, I can take a first pass at that if that works.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of policies, I think Timaj, you just mentioned, some of the infrastructure to like make sure that only moms can book the rooms and no one's trying to take calls from the room is key. From the HR side, I think if you're on the people team or on the HR team, setting up the policy not only for returning to work matters a lot, but also, of course, the parental leave policy that comes before that, right? What can parents expect for how long they can actually go out? Maybe they're on disability or they need to be on bed rest before their actual due date. The type of delivery also matters and impacts the timelines. How long are they legally obligated to? What kinds of payments are they obligated for from the government, but also from the company? How long unpaid can they go? I think it is really critical for people teams to be the subject matter expert there and to really guide folks through that. So I'm going to list off a couple of different things that I had found useful. And of course, I think this is all available online, but there's a lot of open source financial modeling tools online as well to help you if you're setting up a policy for the first time, just trying to see like what's the financial impact of X number of people going out on leave. There's crowdsourced leave data and benchmarks. And so you can see what other companies of your size and stage or revenue are offering to expecting parents. There's verbiage and templates for policies available online as well. I found Startup HR to be a really key group to collect a lot of this data. And I also want to plug community-oriented groups like legal aid societies, legal aid at work societies. Those are all local. They have a lot of really great, easy to digest leave resources, and they'll kind of interpret the legal jargon for you in a way that's really easy to understand and locally compliant. And so those are probably the couple of resources that I would point folks to when it comes to setting up the policies. But of course, the most important thing is making sure that you're interpreting what your company, your organization's character, personality, voices, and make sure that you make it unique to how you plan on supporting the parents.
Those are really fantastic tips, Elaine. I would just add that also partner with your legal team to make sure you're reviewing all the laws and you're covered in those aspects. You know, some of the laws you should look at are Fair Labor Standards Act, the Fairness for Breastfeeding Mothers Act, and the brand new PUMP Act, which is also on the federal level. Also, the majority of states have additional laws at their level as well. If you'd like to see a list of state laws as a starting point, we'll add a link to that in the comments. In addition to that, there are some local ordinances like what we have here in San Francisco. So, you know, there's a lot of layers to it, and it's always the most restrictive laws. Okay. So next question is, how did your benefits team and your facilities team promote the program to employees now that it's all set up?
I mean, I will say at my previous company at Figma, we actually had and Cassie, you've seen our mother's room. We had an amazing space that formerly actually used to be a nail salon. And so we converted, we converted it to a lactation room for many new moms. And one of the things I thought that was exciting was really kind of publicizing it, you know, in our various Slack channels. We had our internal communications via email, posting about it in our women's ERG channel, just letting them know what we had available, plus all of the additional benefits that they would be getting being a new mom. And so really just creating an excitement around it of like, hey, here we are to help to support you, be able to provide what you need on a day-to-day basis, and working in partnership with, of course, HR and facilities to make sure that they had exactly what they need. And then we also had a lot of new folks that were traveling in from other locations. So letting them know of the services that we provided as well. And then, of course, anytime we had visitors, it was nice for them to know, non-employees or just visitors in general, of the accessibility that they had in also using our services. So various different ways of promoting it, but also just publicizing and letting know the support that they had as well.
Yeah, I think to piggyback on that, if anyone finds themselves in a position where they are leading an onboarding program, for example, that's also another easy way to ensure that people know about it and it is promoted from your very first day. You know that this room is specifically for parents who are returning to work and lactating. You know that you can't use it. We enable our recruiters to also be able to speak to it as well if they have any questions. I think a big miss would be if a recruiter was talking to an amazing candidate who did have this question top of mind, and the recruiter's like, I don't know anything about that, or I can double check. That tells us that it's not like a visible living part of your culture, right? And how you support folks. So enable your recruiters on board from the very first day, and I think over communicate.
And one of our clients has a really wonderful solution also from a facilities standpoint, where on the elevators, they'll label which floors have lactation rooms. And then when you leave the elevator, there's arrows that will like guide you to the lactation room. And it makes it so easy because you don't have to go around asking security, asking some of your coworkers where to go. It was just very self-directed and clear.
Yeah.
So everyone who entered that building knew where to find it.
Yeah, that's a great call out. I think just wayfinding in general is really important to be able to use it in a more efficient manner, especially if you're new and you don't know the space. Just having that, I think, just eases it for the new moms as well.
Absolutely. And then, with shifting company priorities or perhaps program champions leaving, how do you ensure that supporting new parents and the lactation room stays a priority within your organization?
Yeah. In my opinion, the only way to ensure that it stays a priority is to really feel the personal accountability for it, right? It's up to us to make it happen, whether you are a parent or you're not. I think part of it is just fundamental inclusion. We have so many parents and non-parents and folks who are in all walks of life at the companies that we work at. And if a champion leaves, it doesn't mean that's not the reason or an excuse for the program to also kind of dwindle down. And I think if an HR person isn't, or any people leader isn't getting the right support from an executive team, I think one, you can try to champion, build a story with data over time. But I think two, there's a really real question of if your senior level leaders aren't supportive of something as fundamental as a new parent sustaining their child and feeding their child. I think the hard reality might be that the company isn't a good fit, right? And I say that with caution, but I think that is just one side to consider too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Lane. I would also say, you really need to question why you're working for a company that isn't prioritizing, families, new moms, working parents. I think honestly, it's just really the right thing to do in terms of prioritizing it for the organization. And I read an article actually pretty recently how they said that hiring more working moms is actually really good for the business. And so, working moms really cultivate that skill set that's applicable at home as well as in work, multitasking, patience, efficiency, all things that you really become big skill sets when you're at home, but also in a working environment. And so why wouldn't you want to support and prioritize that in your organization? I think it's just like critical for moms in general, but also for companies to be successful as well.
Mm-hmm. And then what are the benefits of workplace lactation on recruiting and retention?
I can start off. I think it's hard to measure because it does feel like such a minimum threshold, right? Bar for offering something like that. What makes it particularly difficult to measure, I think, from a recruiting or retention perspective, is that candidates may not even apply if you don't have a parental leave policy in place, or you don't talk about that, or if they come to your office and they don't see any facilities that would support them. And so if they don't even apply, you don't even get an at-bat with that person. And so part of it is, I think you can measure it through engagement scores, retention, how diverse the team is, and whether or not people feel that their perspectives, if they're different from each other's, are heard. I think it all kind of rolls up into the same inclusion indices that people teams often measure.
I think working moms in general are one of the largest labor force out there on the market. And so I think if you're not able to support them, if I'm looking for a job, I'm immediately checking what sort of benefits and programs that those companies and organizations are offering me. And if there isn't a program for that type of support, I'm going to second guess, why would I want to join that company? Because they're not putting them first. And so I think, to your point, Elaine, I think the retention is going to, one, like recruiting and hiring is going to be critical, especially going back to the skill set that I mentioned that working moms have, but also the retention, in keeping them engaged and productive in the workforce as well.
There's a really great study from Office of Women's Health that shows that companies that do have a lactation program have a 60% increase in retention, which is giant. That study has a lot of really fantastic data. But some of the other things is the program reduces turnover, it increases loyalty, it's better workplace diversity, all those things that we want to see in the companies that we work at.
Yeah, absolutely.
So last question before we open it up to the audience. How can other leaders be a champion for workplace lactation programs?
I'll start maybe because I felt like I really had to lean into this and learn, maybe through just like not my own personal experience, but in terms of other leaders to be kind of advocates and champions, I think people have different levels of comfortability of being, like vocal or outwardly, I think, present champions. And so sometimes that can be someone's comfortable with it, publicly affirming returning moms, supporting parents in whatever they need to do if they need to step out or if they're late to a call because of something going on with their kids. Publicly stating that it's okay and that it's nothing to be concerned about, I think is a really important part. If somebody's not comfortable with being so public about it, ask in private, right? Ask in your one-on-ones or just ask to learn. I've heard of really positive experiences from managers as well with new moms, of just managers saying, listen, I'm not going to follow up all the time with you on this, but it doesn't mean that I don't support you. I want you to know that I support you. I need you to speak up, though. I need you to advocate for yourself. Please come to me if you have any concerns, any questions, anything you need, but I'm, probably won't like follow up all that frequently about it. And I hope you're okay with that. That's totally okay too. Create the space. I think my final challenge and note here is if you don't find yourself in a place to either publicly or privately advocate for new parents in your life, I think there's a hard question to ask yourself of how diverse are the perspectives that you surround yourself with, right? What learnings and different lives and different types of families or people are you missing out on because you are kind of insular and you maybe like don't know that much about parenthood or new parenthood. So that just kind of be my last call to challenge there in terms of being a champion for workplace lactation.
I will. I'll go a different way. I just using my own personal experience. I've been in tech over now 10 years now, and prior to that, I won't name names, but when I had my first child, there was this feeling of it being not feeling accepted and supported because I had a child. And I'll give you an example. At the time, I was actually training a class, and there was no facilities, there was no place for me to pump, and I actually had to do it from my car. And so I think that it was, in a way, one, I didn't want people seeing me. I was in my car. I had to there was no privacy, and it was a little bit of dehumanizing of having to pump in my car, on my own time, on my lunch break. I didn't even actually had breaks to be able to pump. And I will say we've come such a long way from that time of how it's now more normalized of, I need a place, I need to find a place to pump, and getting that access and ability to be able to do that and feel that I was being well taken care of. And so, to the credit of a lot of the organizations that I've worked with in currently, and, I hope to in the future, I think we've come a long way, and it's a testament to how important it is supporting parents and not making them feel as if it were just, it's extra work for us. And, that in itself, I think companies are more and more understanding of that, and making them feel supported.
Absolutely. We do have some questions coming through. So first, can employees be compensated for pumping while still completing work duties, such as answering emails or attending virtual meetings? So this is a really timely question because the Pump Act just passed and it will be enforced for most companies starting April 28th, 2023. And that says that pump breaks where a parent is not completely relieved from duty is considered hours worked. And we'll add an article to the Pump Act so you can learn more. Okay. Next question, how has supporting new parents made a difference in workplace culture?
I'll take that one. I think that workplace culture has, if anything, has only added to it in terms of creating a really great experience for workplace in general, allowing and showing that they're being supported for new moms, new parents. I think is just it's a good thing. And so I think going back to my example before, we've come a long way from where we started to where we are now. And I still think that there's still a lot of work to do. However, we're moving in the right direction. And I think it's also, you may not be a new mom now, but you may be in the future. And so knowing that there are policies and processes in place to help to support that when you are ready, I think is just like a good sense of feeling of knowing that I'll be supported, or even thinking about, what's that next company that I want to work at? What are the policies and programs that they have in place? So just knowing that there is that available to them, I think is also, a good thing as well.
Yeah, and I feel like it really adds to women in leadership as well, because there is a leaky pipeline. There's a lot of women who unfortunately don't have realistic options or tools or resources at work, and they're kind of forced out of the workforce. And supporting parents is one more tool that makes it realistic to do both and, have an actual decision about it. Okay. And then what is your biggest victory in the workplace lactation space? This is a fun one.
I've just learned so much, and I feel so lucky to have been exposed to the really hard but joyous stories of people growing their families through, and sometimes it's a big struggle to grow their families and sometimes it's not. But I think, this is I think my bias of my own biggest victory in workplace lactation is we have all learned so much and we've been made better for it because of those perspectives. When we had to introduce a conference room that was no longer a conference room and could not be used, we had to talk and share so many parents had to share vulnerably and be really brave in that. And it really does impact the rest of the company. It sets the tone. Cassie, like you said, it also, I think, shows leadership and women in leadership in a different light as well. So yeah, learnings.
Yeah. I was just going to add to that, in that working moms in general are the biggest victory in terms of that they're getting the support that they need. I will say even mat leave policies have changed over time, and that they're getting more weeks. And it's not only just covering new moms, it's also covering new dads. It's also covering parents who are now doing adoption, like all like, Elaine, I feel like it's
all
just
kinds of families,
all sorts of families. And that's a victory in itself, that people are understanding that there's just not one way, and that there's various ways that we can support all sorts of families in their growth, in their phase. And so I think that in itself is a victory.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I hope that we all, whoever's listening to this, trying to learn, trying to create the space, Healthy Horizons, Cassie, you and your team, I hope that we can all feel really proud to be a part of the turning of that and the change that's happened, even in the last 5 years of what we've seen. Seeing the Pump Act come into fruition too. it's small changes, but over time, it really does make a difference.
Yeah. And, going back to supporting underrepresented groups and types of individuals, another thing the Pump Act is supporting, really for the first time that I've seen it at least, is, parents who've experienced, loss of the baby and their milk still comes in, or, a parent who perhaps loses custody. In those cases, they still need to pump perhaps. And that is such a difficult conversation to have with your employer. And if you just have that space already set up and ready, it kind of, saves adding to an already really challenging situation. So, it's really heartening to see things improve and become, more inclusive for parents. I would say for biggest victory for me is definitely working with a parent who, perhaps they didn't have the best pumping experience and now they want to change it in their workplace so that no one else has to experience that. And, seeing that program go into effect and watching them make a really positive change for everyone that follows in their footsteps is, one of my favorite parts of the job.
I love that.
And then with that, I don't see any other questions. So we will wrap up for the day. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and a big thank you to our guest speakers. For guidance, workplace lactation programs for your company, and tools on how to start or upgrade your program, please contact us at healthyhorizons.com. We're here to support you and be your partner in this. The replay will be available on Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.